Well, hi there. It's been about a month since I've made any kind of a video, and I thought maybe as a instructor, teacher, professor, microbiologist, and a general person who studies the reactions of other people, that perhaps I should spend a little time talking about a few of the things that have been of concern to me and to others, it seems to. One thing, right, and prominent and most first and foremost in everybody's mind right now. It seems that people are concerned about Ebola. Now, Ebola is a horrible disease if you catch it. There have been speculations as to it going airborne and some things like that, rather than just being transmitted in the ways that we have been typically aware that it could be transmitted through exposure to various types of bodily secretions and fluids, etc. I'm just here to tell you that as far as I could see, the type of virus that Ebola is, which they call a filovirus, a member of the filoviridae, it doesn't really make any difference to most of you. It's unlikely that it's going to mutate and go airborne. There may be a few mutations that occur here and there, but you'd have to have quite a few mutations that could occur to really make it able to be airborne. Now, that doesn't mean that if somebody had a really, really advanced case or even a symptomatic case of Ebola and sneezed right on you and got secretions all over you, that you wouldn't be infected. You probably would be if you weren't protected. But that's about the only way you're going to get Ebola out of the air. And it's really not out of the air, it's from the secretions, etc. Otherwise, you have to come in close contact with symptomatic individuals. Now, this person who flew to Cleveland, for instance, the chances of her being able to spread Ebola were very small because she wasn't symptomatic. She had a low-grade fever. When she got back to Texas, they found that she did test positive for Ebola, but she hadn't been symptomatic. She wasn't even symptomatic then. So it's very unlikely that she infected anybody. And the fear that results from things like Ebola way goes beyond anything that's reasonable. But it's very easy, I know, to turn you fearful. There's so many things we have to be afraid of in this world. Ebola is just one of them. We've got a lot more to fear from Lyme disease, and especially chronic Lyme disease, and that is something that I also wanted to address today a little bit. They've found that Lyme disease is a much more common infection than they thought it was. For a while, they were thinking 30,000 new cases a year, and last year the CDC came up with a number that was 300,000 new cases a year. Now, if you think about how long Lyme disease has been around and thinking about 300,000 new cases a year, we're talking about a lot of people who could potentially be victims who would be having manifestations of chronic Lyme disease. I know quite a few. There are quite a few on my Facebook network, on my network of friends. One does videos here on YouTube, and she's Destiny Limey, she calls herself, or Destiny Deo. And she's been a victim of Lyme disease along with her mother for quite 4 or 5 years, 5, 6 years, I guess. And she has never once given in to despair or fear. She's not let fear control her, and that's a very good thing. She does very good videos, and she informs a lot of you about what's going on with Lyme disease, and I certainly approve and appreciate that. Now, other things that are of concern. I do a lot of political postings and things like that on Facebook, and it may seem that I'm a very polarized person as far as being in favor of one party, the Democrats, of course. But if the Republicans were the people who were saying they care about others and they want to help people and they want to provide health care for people, reliable health care, They want to provide safety nets for people who are poor. They want to take care of the widow and orphan and all that sort of stuff. Then I'd be on their side, because I'm on the side of humanity. One of the treatments that I have suggested for chronic Lyme disease that also would protect people against Ebola, I imagine, is consumption of ionic silver. Ionic silver that can be obtained from ozwater.com. You can look at it on the web, or there are other sources of ionized minerals, silver being one of the ones they almost always have. And then there are other people who have colloidal silver, and there's nothing wrong with colloidal silver in the sense that it does have some beneficial effect. The problem with colloidal silver is it doesn't work as well against things that form biofilms because the colloidal particles are too big. Ions, you can measure the size of ions in angstroms, which are very, very, very small units of measure, millionths of a millimeter. But colloidal particles are larger than that. When you have biofilms, they form kind of a gelatinous matrix with pathways through which allow circulation of foodstuffs and different things like that, even toxins that they produce for the Borrelia organisms or whatever organisms have produced the biofilm. Those very small pathways are too large to admit the colloidal silver particles. However, ionic silver gets in there very easily. That's why ionic silver, given over long periods of time, can improve the condition of any Lyme-infected individual. I'm not prescribing anything because I'm not in a position where I could legally prescribe anything. But I am saying that I have seen evidence that the ionic silver taken on a regular basis does seem to improve things for chronic Lyme-infected individuals. Okay, another thing that I wanted to mention is the fact that hydrogen peroxide is absolutely the best disinfectant you can find anywhere. You buy it over the counter, sometimes at Walmart, for 89 cents a quart. Very cheap. And yet, it is the only substance you can buy over the counter, or one of the few that you can buy, period, at 3% strength, which is the common strength you buy over the counter, that is called a sterilant. What that means is that it kills bacteria, viruses, fungi, and even inactivates endospores, and it could certainly inactivate Ebola, for instance, very easily. If you want to feel a little safer, get yourself a few bottles of peroxide and get a bottle with a sprayer on it. You can use the sprayer to spray your hands or your clothing or whatever if you come out of a situation where you feel like you've been exposed, even to common colds and things like that. Another thing you can do with hydrogen peroxide is you can put it in a cool mist vaporizer, 1 part peroxide to 3 parts water, and spray that into the air, and that cuts down contagion quite a bit. Again, if you're paranoid about Ebola, you shouldn't be, but if you are, and it certainly you should be, maybe potentially paranoid about influenza or the common cold or some other airborne infections, this will cut down the chance of you becoming infected in your home if you have it working continually, or even just during the daylight hours or whatever, or during the nighttime hours. So this is something that would be useful for you too. I am hoping as we come into the holiday season that many of you will find yourselves able to control the fears which regulate all of us. Now, one of the things that I'm unfortunately a little bit concerned about is the fact that this Ebola situation has come up at a time when people should be going to the polls to vote. I say go to the polls to vote no matter what, There is not going to be Ebola in the air around the voting areas. You need to vote. You are an American citizen. You need to exercise the most important right you have as a citizen, and that is the right to vote. So please do not absolve yourselves of that right out of fear. Don't let fear control you and keep you from being able to exercise that very, very, very important right that if we think about our heroes who have fought and died, certainly they fought and died for that one. And for you women especially, the right to vote is extremely important. And there are individuals who would like to deprive you of that. So as a woman, I would think you need to especially be sure that you get out and vote, so that maybe you can assure that your right to vote will be maintained, and that certain individuals who might otherwise get into office will not get into office, so that you will be able to keep voting and keep doing other things that women can do. The Dalai Lama has said that civilization will be saved by the Western woman. I believe that. You've got a unique perspective. Men have a tendency to look at something here and look there, and we're always looking for, this leading to this and this leading to this and so on. And it seems like the female perspective is a little more globalized in the sense that everything circles and comes back on itself. And that's really what seems to be the case if we study the shape of the universe from quantum physics. So I'm telling you, we need your input, and we certainly don't need women to be excluded from the political process or any other process. Now, there are some women who have more bitter and small-souled, small-minded attitudes. They have learned that from their environment and from men who have controlled them. But you need to break loose of that and think about efforts. After all, the mother instinct that women seem to have can be projected upon the rest of the world, and you want to take care of and defend all of the world's citizens, all your fellow human beings. Well, you can do that, but you need to maintain your right to vote. You need to maintain your perspective where you're free from fear. You're not controlled by it. Now, again, Destiny Limey, Destiny Dale, she has made some videos, and one thing about her that I have to say is that she has never let fear control her, and she is progressing admirably because of that. I applaud her, and Dana Limey Brown, and Kimberly Hershey, and several of you others who have progressed despite the Lyme infections and things like that. I applaud all of you. Keep going forward. That's what we all need to do. Keep moving forward. Thank you. And I'll talk to you again before the holidays, I'm sure.